So, hi, Kozuki Kawaguchi. So, I think you are Japanese. So, is it pronounced perfectly? Your first name and last name?
Yeah, no, I think you did great. I mean, any name that starts with K, you do. Yeah. So,
Kozuke?
but
Kozuke or
yeah,
Kozuki?
Kosuke.
Kosuke. Oh, I was
Yeah,
almost perfect. Kosuke. Okay.
yeah,
Kosuke. And
yeah.
the last name?
Kawaguchi.
Kawagichi?
Kawaguchi. Yeah, no,
Kosuke?
I think you're doing
Kosuke?
great. Yeah,
Kosuke
yeah,
Kawagichi.
yeah.
Okay. So now I'm
There
Japanese,
you go.
right? With
Practically, yes.
practically, yes. Okay, very good. So, what was your first computer?
So, I guess maybe like a very first one is with a Nintendo. The Nintendo had this like what they call the family computer. Is that a Japanese thing? Did they have it elsewhere in the world?
With keyboard?
It's got the uh, Nintendo Entertainment System,
Yeah,
NES.
Nintendo.
Yeah,
I'm aware of it, but this
yeah.
is not a computer. You can just play with it,
So
right?
yeah, so they had this like I guess the cartridge and the keyboard that
Mhm.
and then you connect those and it loads into the basic. So that
Oh,
was I think yeah.
so you could load
So
BASIC to Nintendo?
right, so you put the cartridge on and you can play Super Mario, let's say, and you put another cartridge on and it becomes a basic interpreter,
And was it a
right? And then
keyboard?
yeah, and then the whole box comes to the keyboard, so like you could you
Oh,
get yeah yeah.
oh,
So they
you know the name of the system?
um yeah
Roughly.
I good I yeah no I don't
Hey,
um
what's wrong with you? Everyone knows you know the first computer.
the thing is, like, it was back then. I think I was just too small. Oh, it
Oh,
was
okay.
called Family Basic. There you go.
Family Basic, okay. And you
Yeah,
started right away
but
the
that
first
was
day with the Basic? No.
mhm. Yeah, but that was a little too complicated. I distinctly remember, like, it came to this user manual that explained this
Yeah,
concept
wait
of
a second.
programming.
The first thing you did, you tried to load BASIC to your computer, or you start gaming first? No, you played games,
Of
right?
course, like the first thing, yeah, I had a few games, but I
Otherwise, you
think
were a
at some
prodigy
point.
child. It could be, but it's it's all like crazy. Okay.
Right, yeah. So, but I distinctly remember actually going through the manual in which like they were trying to explain the concept of variable.
Uh
Right. So
huh.
there was a box that has a label called A, and then you put the number in it, and it was above my head.
Yeah.
So I just really couldn't.
So
Um,
why you open the manual? You could just keep playing games. So
so I guess it must be my parents who. Yes, I don't know why it ended up in my house. Really, I
okay.
mean, clearly, like my parents must have bought it for me, but it's yeah, it was too complicated for me.
So
Um,
are your parents programmers or
no, 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 no. They're just happy government employees. Like they went to the like economic school, so nothing to do with computers.
okay? But
Yeah.
then you go to BASIC from your parents, and yeah, okay. And so what happened? You kept playing, or you wanted to learn about variables?
So I guess that I think I saw the basically typed in. So the user manual had this like a few sample programs, right? So like I typed those in and then I remember those, but I kind of left it there. Like, and then I think maybe in the junior high school I picked it up again. This time is a laptop that my mother was using. So I remember it was running MS-DOS, and so that also had a basic. But by then, like I have intellectually developed enough that I could actually do some meaningful things with it. But this was back in the day, right? Where I'm sure you went through the similar thing. There's actually like a paper magazines where people have submitted their programs.
Yeah,
So it's like quite a bit of time you just type those in and you start making changes.
yeah.
So I kind of graduated into making games from just playing games.
How young were you with your Nintendo?
So I think the Nintendo showed up in my house when maybe I was in like a third grade or fourth grade, right?
Okay,
And then the
uh,
laptop programming was in like a seventh, eighth grade.
okay. And you were
Yeah.
interested in programming, or just wanted just to play games again?
I think, yeah, well, I think I was interested in programming I don't remember. I mean, it's just a toy, I think. So, I guess, well, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I was interested in playing a game, and
Yeah.
it necessitates me understanding the programming, I think.
Okay.
So that's probably more like,
Because
yeah,
what usually happened with the MS-DOS days is some games required you to do some basic batch programming in order to
right,
to to load the game. So this is how many programmers started, to
right,
program because they were forced, to input some commands in order to load the
yeah,
game. They were protected
yeah,
memory and extended memory and all the stuff. Yeah, this is what. Yeah. Okay. So
yeah,
and yeah, okay, what happened then? So you pick the laptops, you try, to understand variables again with BASIC, I guess. And what is
yeah,
your very
yeah.
first program? Hello World? No.
So I said, well, again, back then I was just primarily just typing in the program that was in this magazine, and then like sometimes, so well, most like quite a bit of these programs are written for another architecture. There was not a
Yeah.
standardization, so you can't just type the same program and expect it to work. So after a while, I got adventurous enough to start essentially like porting a program.
Hmm.
Like my laptop only had like two colors, white and black. And so if somebody had a program for like 8-color computers, like I can't just do it right away, right? So that was that. And kind of next step up that I remember is like I learned C++. It's like so I hope so I got I joined this like a local computer club, and like they had C compiler, right? So that felt like a much shinier toy in terms of like what it's capable of doing.
But what you
So
wanted to achieve? Do you wanted to code a game or what was your goal?
I don't. I mean, I think that by that point, the programming kind of became a goal of its own, right? So the building this, I think what now I think of as building abstractions.
Uh-huh.
So like for a while, I spent a good chunk of time building class libraries, and, like so the GUI widgets and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, and then C++ was kind of useful stuff like that, right?
Was it in Japan or was it in US?
Yeah, I grew up in Tokyo, so all of this
Ah.
happened. Yeah.
And how was Tokyo different to US? Was there any difference or was it very similar?
Well, I mean, I obviously didn't live in two places at the same time.
Yeah.
I think it's similar. Yeah, so I mean, Japan did have its own like, I guess the computer architecture and whatnot. So like for a good long while, it's local. Like NEC had this dominance in the domestic market, and they had this
NEC, you
variant
said?
of
NEC,
basic.
right? NEC?
Yeah.
They were PC
So
from NEC or what?
Well, so I mean, it ran the MS-DOS, so in that sense, it was nominally compatible.
Hmm.
But the screen resolution was different. Like, I think in the US, VGA was the standard,
Hmm.
and over there it's like a 640 by 400. So we are lacking 80 pixels, and
Oh,
the
interesting.
character code was different, and so it's not exactly the same.
Oh, now about the keyboard. Was it like a US ASCII keyboard or is it Japanese keyboard?
So keyboard is different, and it's super annoying. And now that I think about it, when I went to Germany, I discovered that the Z and like a few letters, like just a few letters in the different places, surprisingly annoying. It's the same thing as the Japanese
Okay.
keyboard. Yeah. So like open parentheses, that one that I remember is like open parentheses on top of 8. So in the US keyboard, it's like a 9 and 0 is a bracket, right?
Yeah. 8,
So in
9.
Japan, it's on 8 and 9. So like that difference used to like kill me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So you were interested in abstractions and C++ on NEC computers. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just wanted to create a class library. But still, you saw a movie, how you were motivated. I mean, because just creating a class library just for fun is an unusual hobby, right?
Yeah, so this, I guess the local, I mean, the computer club in my junior high school and high school, like we did, I guess we made a point of, well, like every once in a while, annually there was like a school, I guess, I don't know if, I guess this American company, maybe like a science fair might be the closest day in the
Okay.
American school. Right. So that's a huge deal. And then so we always like prepared like a new program as an exhibition for
Mhm.
those. And so, the GI libraries they built, like we used, not just me, but the whole club would use those for those occasions. And you also teach the kids that come after you, and like there's this like a club internal magazines that we all like contributed some articles to. So in some sense, like it's this like a peer recognitions maybe that also played some motivations.
Okay, so interesting. And what's about your leisure? So the school goes from 8 to 1, or how long took? Was the school different from the time, or was it crazy times in Japan? So what's?
I think like the school went from like 8 to 4 probably.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, is that not normal? I guess. I mean, we had and then I usually got to school earlier. So like maybe by 7 a.m. or so that we spend like a few, 30 minutes or an hour in the club room, and either doing some programming or like playing game with my friends. And in the afternoon, like I also remember like twice a week we stayed until pretty late and also did those like activities.
And do lots of homework in Japan? So after the school, or was it no homework?
I mean, there must have been some, but I don't really remember. Right?
Okay.
I mean, you have you don't remember these minute details. Right? So,
Okay. So what happens after C++ time? So, I mean, you just kept developing the class libraries, or what's your...
So I think like a key change happened when I discovered this like a computer network. So that was, I guess, like a Japanese equivalent of a CompuServe. I guess back then it's called a bulletin board system, right? Like you dial up on the phone and like you download your messages and you have some forums and stuff like that. And in those places, there is like a mechanism set up that allows you to sell software. So you could charge, I guess back then it was called shareware. It's like, you can it's kind of like iPhone app now that I think about it. It's like, $5 a pop or something. Usually it's pretty cheap. And so I discovered the world of that. And so I started writing programs like a shareware and selling those. So that was kind of fascinating. I think by then I must be in like a high school. So it was, I mean, I did surprisingly well, at least in my back then high school standard, right? So I thought, wow, like this is great. Like I must be pretty good at this, and like it does make money, and people appreciate the software I'm making and all that. And that was a wonderful experience.
Oh, very good. And what do you create and what you sold then?
So the two software that I remember distinctively, like one is one is essentially like a text file viewer.
Okay.
And then so that was also, I think that was for Windows, and that one did pretty well. The other one was the dustbin software, right? So back then, like you delete the file and it was permanent. So this software, like it allows you to create a dustbin. Now it's a standard feature in the operating system for a long time, but back then it wasn't in Windows 3.1. So I built that. And I still remember, like I saw that one is like $5 a pop. So it did. I think.
How much money did you make per month back then? So
I remember like 1 month I hit $5,000.
Wow!
Like I was like, wow, this is great. But it wasn't really constant. But I did remember like at that peak, and then so I thought that, well, like it's in some sense like it's so easy, right? You don't need an office; you just need a computer and the time. So.
But you have to have the idea. It is unusual for a kid to have an idea and the persistence of implement that, right?
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, like, I mean, anything in the software world is not new. Like, it wasn't like I came up with the idea of this dustbin software. I'm pretty sure, like, by then the Mac already had it, and a number of other people was selling the software. So I didn't need to create a brand new idea. I just need to write a good enough program and, have a competitive price or whatnot. So. And now that I think about it, actually, I already had this like some plugin mechanism in this dustbin software. So it really must have been like a deep in my DNA that everything I do has to have a plugins.
Plugins, not bad.
Yeah. So yeah. And as I thought, and this was also around the time, like, I was in the cram school, right? So in that part of Asia, it's a huge thing to get into a college, and you spend a lot of time studying. So I was also doing that. And so as a part of like escape mechanism, like I thought, okay, now that if I get into a college, I'm gonna scale this operation up a little bit. Maybe I'll recruit some friends and, if it's this easy, like then we should do like a little more of it, and it should be fun. So
How old were you
like
back then?
so that was in like by then 11th grade, I think. Yeah.
But how old? 17, 16, 15?
So 11th grade would be what, like a 16? I
Okay.
think.
Not
15,
bad. What did
something
with the
like that.
money? You bought a motorcycle or what you did?
I did the most stupid thing, which is just save the money.
Save the money. Most stupid thing. This is interesting.
Well, because let's face it, like $5,000 today, as a grown-up adult in this field, it's nothing. Like,
Yeah.
so, like the money I saved, like in today's time, it didn't really make any material difference in what I'm doing now. But back then, for like a high school kid, that's a significant amount of money. So I think I would have been better off just spending it, whatever. I did it.
You could
Yeah.
also buy, Apple stocks or something like this, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like imagine if I was smart enough to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
or NEC even. I think NEC before .com boom was also interesting.
yeah. Yeah. So actually, I mean, I bought a few computers naturally, but aside from that,
Which computers you bought? NECs?
so NEC, my parents bought it for me. That was in like 8th grade, and that was expensive. But next one up, I think I bought the PC80 essentially. Like so, next one I bought in like a high school, and then so that was the standard PC80 computer.
But which product was a Japanese computer or?
Like all geeks used to do back then, like we assembled our own computers.
Ah, okay. I also did it,
yeah,
but
so, yeah. So it's got this motherboard and the
but was it
CPU.
Japanese parts? I'm just genuinely interested because I also always created computers by myself. So I picked different motherboards, and I had the nice chassis. I forgot the company with a Thermaltake usually Thermaltake chassis and super micro motherboards, and then AMD CPUs or sometimes Intel back and forth. I tried everything, and a nice power supplies with and then ventilation was always cool. Water cooling. I also created some. It's a huge rocket with water. So it was nice stuff. So I'm just interested. So in Japan, you had Japanese companies, or you just had the same what I did?
I think the most of the parts were import.
Okay.
So I mean the graphic cards, motherboard, certainly CPU. I think all of those. The memory chips back then, I think those were indeed Japanese. But there was this one part in town in Tokyo where all these like a part shop were, and then it was close enough from my house that I could take my bicycle and maybe spend 30 minutes going there. So I remember spending a lot of time there.
For instance, in near Germany, in Austria, there's a company called Noctua, and they build in the coolers. So there's the ventilation systems looks great. So this is what it's a small company, so creating nice parts. So I think there's something like interesting parts from Japan. That's my assumption.
Yeah, maybe. I don't really remember that though, but yeah.
Yeah, what's wrong with you? You don't remember the cool stuff, but you remember plugins,
Yeah, it's like I don't know how the memory works strange. There's this almost like a movie cutscenes that I remember. Another scene that I remember is so in one of these big appliance store, they had a computers on display, and a few of those had this a Prince of Persia, and that was a game. And so friend and I went, and it was a summer break, and we basically occupied that a showroom for the whole day from the morning to the afternoon, just playing the Prince of Persia. That I remember. And,
regarding cutscenes, so in Prince of Persia, I only remember. I think this is the beginning scene with a trapdoor or something. This is what I remember now. I only saw the first two minutes. What I remember, I think I only watched Prince. I was also fascinated by the game actually back then.
Yeah, it was an incredible game. And I also remember the NEC had a showroom in another part of Tokyo, and I also remember going there. That one after school.
Maybe was also interesting. And was never in Tokyo. Was never in Japan. So were the shops different to US or European shops, the computer stores, or were they similar? So were they complete crazy Japanese shops with lots of, parts, or just a regular store, boring computer store?
So I think, well, I only visited something similar in like Paris, where there indeed was like a section of, let me speak about this. So maybe there's this like a mile, like a square mile by mile across.
Okay.
And then the whole town originally was like electronic components. So you buy this capacitor, resistors, and stuff like that. And then in this block, like there are a few huge appliance stores, like a modern, almost like a department store looking things, and like a clean, like a big spacious places. So there was those, but like in other parts of that same square block, you had this like a hole in the wall, like a hole on the wall. Is that expression? Like in teeny places, and that's selling like stocking up boxes from like the ground to the roof, and there was like this like a very old lady manning the space, and so there's like all sorts of this very chaotic place. It's like a mix.
Sounds almost like in the Gremlin store, in the Chinese Gremlin.
yeah. I actually went to like a Shenzhen like a few years ago, and it had a similar vibe.
Okay. I bought my part sometimes in Munich. There was near the central station, a shop. It was a tiny shop, and it was a little bit crazy because from outside it looked normal. It's a very, very small shop, but you had to exactly know what you would like to buy. So you came in and you say, I would like this and this. Okay, here is it. And if it took too long, next one. Then, go aside and wait a second. So this was a complete crazy experience. But the guy could, explain you everything. So if you have a question, so okay, take this and this and this and this, and they had everything. So this was crazy. I'm really curious whether they're still operational, and not now because of Corona, but could be interesting, okay. Interesting. So now, you spend the money on computers and save some money, which was not wise. You tell me. So for a kid, I would say, who knows, right? If you spend the money for, maybe it would change your character or something. Maybe it's better, to do this way. So who knows? So what happened after C++?
So I got into the college, and then
you studied computer science.
So the first couple of years in college is liberal arts. So no matter which way you specialize, like you basically do the same thing. So I learned English, I learned Chinese. I took like a course in like a modern, like a history of Soviet Union, like there's all sorts of.
Why Chinese?
Well, it was like we all had to take some second foreign language.
Is Chinese hard to learn for you, or is Chinese was easy?
It was, so the part that was easy is like we use the same characters, right? Or at least we share some characters, so that's been convenient. But we pronounce them completely differently, so it didn't really help.
So complete different, or so complete opposite, or is it not even similar? So complete different pronunciation.
It's I guess so what happened was that these characters were imported like the 2 millennia ago or something, and then so the pronunciation has diverged.
Okay.
And then they also evolved. So in China, by then, like the mainline China, they simplified the kanjis, the characters. So some of them look drastically different. Anyhow, so I mentioned earlier, like I thought I should scale up this operation of selling shareware, and I did exactly that. So I recruited, I think, like 5 or 6 friends, and then so we had I still remember, like I carried around this a network hub.
Okay.
And we all each had a laptop, right? And then like we just stormed some like a cafeteria in the university or something, and set up this network, and we start working. So back then, this wasn't the days. Like we all had. There was no Wi-Fi, so we all had to use this like a physical network, and we built some software and started selling those, and then
which software?
And became like,
what software? Give me. I'm really interested because, and how you got the ideas. Also interested. So were you more a businessman? So like Steve Jobs, you watched what is popular and try to do something similar, or how you got the ideas?
I didn't describe it as a businessman. I mean, it's not. It doesn't. There was like, our labor was practically free. So, but yeah, so I don't, what did we sell? And pretty soon, like some actual real company discovered us, and they wanted us to take, I guess the outsourced development essentially. Like they want, so they pay us so much, so money, and we implement this and that, and like get back to them. And so we did a few of those. I also remember building this like XML, like a little later down the road. I remember building this XML editor. So the idea was like, this was I don't know. So there was a technology called XML style sheet, and then that people are using it to transform XML into like HTML essentially.
XSL.
So what? Yeah, exactly. So what we did was, well, we can make editing XML is hard for non-tech people, but if we can make people edit HTML and then so like a reverse transform that back into XML, so like apply the XSLT transformation and remember how the mapping was, and so like figure out how people edit the HTML side and try to reconstruct what the corresponding original XML change was.
But this is hard because the HTML is not as strict as XML, right? So this was.
Yeah, so we are using XHTML. If you
okay.
Regard. So, yeah, so that was the idea. I remember doing that. I don't think it was a commercially successful particularly, but I think we got onto like a newspaper once or twice.
And was it with C++ still?
Yeah, so I was now back then I was squarely in the Microsoft world, so like in the Windows, Visual C++ kind of thing.
Okay, and Xalan probably, right? This was the Xalan software, no? Xalan was also C++ binding, I think.
No, well, so that was the world that was the open source thing, and we were squarely in the Microsoft side.
So you were the closed source guy. So now it comes out.
I was on the dark side. So people were quite surprised when I kind of joined the Sun Microsystems the next move.
So what happens after your semi-success with XHTML to Xalan? XML mapping.
So this exposure into XML, I got connected with this like a band of gangs in Japan back then. They were trying to. So there was this one guy, Murata-san, and he was trying to push for a new schema language for XML.
Okay.
So I just randomly showed up in one of the tech conferences and presented my work of this like reverse transforming XML and stuff like that. And he found me and like he took me under his wing. And next thing I know, like I was part of this rebellions who was trying to like build the schema language against the W3C, who was trying its own thing, XML schema.
And why that?
Well, I guess. So I think the Murata-san was originally of like some, like a mathematical scientific background, and he felt the XML schema that was designed by the committee kind of lacked this mathematical elegance.
Okay.
So he had a different version of it. It's kind of like based on the regular expression expanded to tree.
Okay.
And then so, he had a spec, he had a paper. I think by then he was already like involved in a number of standardization efforts. So he must have thought like, this, he was really passionate and so it was contagious. So, and I like this feeling of like, so he really painted this picture of like, okay, guys, like we're in the rebellion. Like, do you know the Star Wars? Right?
Yeah.
So we are the rebels, and these are the Death Stars, and like Microsoft and IBM, they're building this like a useless Death Star that we're gonna destroy. So I loved it.
So you say, okay, then I would join immediately, right? So you tried.
Yeah. And So now that I think his leadership style, you didn't think of him as a kind of like a traditional, company style leader, but nonetheless he was a leader, and I think it was in some sense he was very inspirational.
Okay. Was it successful or somehow noteworthy?
So I think he made quite a force, and I think it is also him who I think like talked to the guy John Bozak. He was doing XML, and John Bozak was doing XML in Sun. He owned this XML technology center. And somehow I still think that between two of them, they must have arranged something so that next thing I know, like I had a job offer from Sun Microsystems to work in Menlo Park, California.
So you were hired by Sun then?
Yeah. So like, I took it and like I came here. And that schema language itself kind of, I think.
You knew Sun back then? Also, I mean, if you're a Microsoft guy Then
Exactly. Yeah.
so how, I mean, Sun asked you. So were you? Was it an easy choice to join Sun or?
So, yeah, I mean, this working in the United States just felt so interesting opportunity. And I was young, right? I mean, I think it must have been like a 23 or 4. So
Okay.
I thought, like, why not? Right? I mean, this is the Silicon Valley after all. So, like, just like one day I landed here and I started looking for a place to live.
And was it a lot difference to Tokyo? I mean, if you compare back then, your first day in San Francisco and Tokyo, was it like, shock for you, or was it expected?
Yeah, it is quite a shock. I mean, so first of all, this was not in San Francisco, which is at least a city with a skyscraper.
Yeah.
Right? But this was down in like a South Bay near San Jose. Where like you'd be hard pressed to find like any building taller than 3 stories.
Okay.
So here I'm from Tokyo, where like my normal density of people is like maybe 100 times more than the people's density here.
Okay.
And I remember like the highway has this like a ramp that goes up in circle. And there's like an entire space in the middle of that ramp is empty. Maybe it's like a 100 meters diameter circle. And I was shocked, like this much space unused in Tokyo would be unthinkable. Like there'll be buildings, there'll be houses.
Okay.
So I was like, wow, how is this possible?
Okay. So it's like a desert for you, right? Yeah. So as for me, so no one. Yeah, it's like Canada or Alaska, right?
It's like it felt like a sea of parking lots with buildings as islands, and like it's just like I still feel that way. But
and you like that, or you wanted to come back? So.
Well, I mean, I clearly liked it, or else I wouldn't be here for 20 years.
Yeah, but usually so this is my goal. I stay here for 1 month and see what happens, and then you like it. At the beginning it's always hard, right?
Yeah, I mean, the beginning was hard, I think, but I don't. But I guess when you're young, you don't really have a sense of differences, and so I wasn't integrated into any organized effort in that team. So John basically kept me doing whatever.
What was your name? John? How? John?
John Bozak. I think he's a well-known figure in the XML world.
Still, John Bozak. Okay.
I mean, he has a Wikipedia page. I mean, look at that. Yeah.
Okay. So put it to the chat. Yeah. So I will put it to the show notes.
Yeah. So I hope he's still alive.
So I think. What's interesting that you like XML. So I thought you are really the low level tech guy, and you like XML. So interesting. But you didn't like SOAP, or you were also SOAP guy?
So I think the Sun didn't like SOAP because in that I think Sun felt like it was kind of left behind. SOAP was really an effort between IBM and Microsoft, and then Sun was really left kind of cut out from the conversation. So the entire mood in the company on that was like not great.
Okay. So what did you do at Sun? What was your first project at Sun? You remember that?
Yeah. So I was hired originally to implement this schema validator for this, the new schema language that the, Murata-san was advocating. So that was called Relax. And then so I did that, and like I did that. I eventually created a lot bigger than just a validator. So that worked well. And then this thing, and James Clark kind of joined the effort, or like they decided to join their hands, and so this thing evolved, and it was now called Relax NG, and so that kept going for a while. And then at some point, I guess the company must have decided that okay, this is not gonna go this is not gonna take over XML schema. So I joined the XML schema working group as well, like did a little bit of work. And I think eventually I kind of got integrated into the Java EE team. So that was where the XML effort was taken onto. So I think we did a JAXB, the data binding for XML. That became my main project.
You mentioned Relax NG, right? This is what you worked on. Yeah, this was David Mertz SC from Documents from David and Eric van der Vlist. And James Clark, exactly. Girard, and And regarding JAXB, I attended Java 1, I think 2000, and JAXB was introduced as Project Adelard, I think, right?
I think, it was really around that time. It must have been 2004, 5-ish.
Okay.
It was great. I mean, that part of the Sun back then, we had a lot of visibility, right? Like everything we did, we attracted a huge crowd just because someone was doing it to the part of Java EE. Like we attracted so many eyeballs and attention. So
Yeah.
being able to work on that stuff.
And there was one
a huge
evil book,
project.
I remember, Java and XML. So this was from O'Reilly. And they showed this at Java 1, Java and XML. And then everyone wanted to have XML. And I was back in Germany. And then I remember in a company, there was a DB2 database. And it worked perfectly. And the architect got the idea to convert everything to XML. So they stored, in the tables, XML again. And it blew up, of course, because it was redundant. If you have a table, there is already metadata. There is no need to store XML again. But they wanted to have XML, and this project was that they had to buy new hardware to store the XML in the tables, and there was like XML hysteria. Everyone wanted to have XML, and back then I couldn't get it because it's okay, as you know, this is readable, and you can just exchange documents, but it's not like the solution to all problems. And I remember in Java 1 the book Java and XML from O'Reilly, and then I don't know when it was, probably 2005, 2006, I guess.
Yeah, I think the broader trend of storing the semi-structured data, I think that began with, at least in my worldview, that began in XML, and I think it still goes on, right? There's a lot of database now you can store JSON.
Now, question to you. Hopefully, you get the right answer. I get the right answer from you. You like YAML?
I do. I mean, do I like it? I mean, I use it.
You write YAML or do you read YAML? That's the question now.
I do both. Yeah, I do both.
Okay.
I think. I like it? I don't know. I didn't think in terms. I don't really have any emotional investment in it the same way I had with XML.
Yeah, I had lots of cursing, as the YAML. I had to do YAML the first times, like, you are all crazy. This is impossible, with all the formatting. But now I'm able to write YAML. So now but at the beginning I said this is mission impossible. What? I couldn't even get property files or whatever. Dot files would be better than YAML, and I don't think it is worth to use YAML, I have to say, because it is readable, but XML was not bad, actually. A reasonable XML is also okay.
Yeah, it does feel a little redundant. Like when I'm writing those like a Kubernetes resource files, it does feel redundant from time to time. So I don't know if I should blame like YAML for that, but that's a kind of exposure.
Yeah. So JAXB, huge impact.
Yeah.
I also used JAXB a lot, to expose JPA entities as JAXB one-to-one with XML and JSON. So I misused JAXB to produce JSON, which was a little bit dangerous because it was not clearly specified how it's got serialized, but it worked well enough in all these years. Yeah. So thank you for that. So what else you did in the Java EE group? And by the way, how was the work with Sun? You enjoyed that? How was the team? What were the working hours? Or was it like crazy or?
Yeah, no, it was great. So coming from Tokyo, I was used to work crazy hours. So, like
how crazy?
Maybe, so we show up in like 9, 10 a.m.-ish, and then we work almost until the last train, which is like a midnight-ish.
Wow.
So there's a long hours.
And how is it in Japan? Is it like the hours is like, you get paid for the hours, or do you get paid by 8 hours, or how it works?
Remember, this was our own company, so like we had a
okay, own company is normal. Okay.
Yeah. But here I am at Sun Microsystems, and by 6 p.m. like the office is empty. So I was like, wow, like this, and then they still show up in like a 9, 10 a.m. right? If you're working till midnight, you'd be justified to show up a little late in the morning. But here in the US, like they only work till 6 p.m. and they show up in 9 or 10. So like I was like, what's going on here? So that was surprising. And also, I mean, as an engineer, again, like I said, this was a place that we got a lot of visibility to what we are working on. And because like if you think about people working for Google, like the rest of us don't get to see the kind of like what code they wrote or the abstraction they designed. So as an individual engineer, it's like you never really get your credibility built by working for Google, aside from the Google halo itself. Whereas at Sun, like back then we had that halo and people can see the code you wrote, and so individually like you get to be recognized. So that was a perfect place.
Okay.
The only thing I didn't enjoy was eventually like Sun went down the tube and the company disappeared. But,
of course. But you spent all the time with JAXB at Sun?
And then, so I also, because the work cut out at the 6 p.m., like it wasn't keeping me busy enough. So I did a lot of open source projects.
Yeah.
Like one of them was what eventually became Jenkins.
Yeah, but Hudson, how you got the idea for Hudson?
It's like a 3 reasons. So the one is like I used to be a guy who breaks builds all the time. So like I receive a phone calls from my colleagues like, hey, you touched that. I know the source code doesn't compile, and I think you touched this file last. Like, what's happening? And sure enough, like I didn't commit to some files, and they're still lying around in my workspace, etc. Right? And then another was like I noticed that so we are part of Java EE, so we're producing this platform, but I realized like not many people around me has actually used their own platform to write the software.
Mm-hmm.
So we are not eating our dog food. So I wanted to fix that. So I was looking for whatever program that I can do on top of Java EE. And then actually it's in some sense, it's quite telling. Like I didn't use any of the Java EE except for the servlet. So, even JSP eventually I had, so in that sense, like in eating my own dog food, I discovered like what we are producing and I didn't like it.
Okay. But you were at the Glassfish team, right?
Right. In the Java EE team, so like I had reorganized partly into Glassfish. And back then, my recollection is back then I was substantially spending time on Hudson as a part of some projects, but I also helped in Glassfish, and that was good, I guess.
Hudson became then, this was a leisure project, but it became official Sun project at one point of time. Right?
Yeah, because I was using it at the company, and at some point, like more and more of my teams around me started relying on it. So like if I tell them like, okay, I'm gonna work on this on the weekend, like when they are having a bug, right, then the operation is in trouble. Like they didn't want to wait until the weekend, so they were okay with me working during the work hours to fix problems. And, it was quite convenient. The whole thing was open source. So the Sun could, I didn't really care who owns the copyright of the code. So, Sun owning it was not a problem. So that made it convenient.
Yeah, but it was a part of the java.net. It was, right? It was the...
Yeah. So I did it, I did this, most of my open source projects back then was on this java.net. And that was, I guess, the Sun, therefore, to try to build some open source community around Java.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the Hudson came with a war, which you could start directly, and it came with an interesting servlet engine. That this was, how it's called, Winstone.
Yeah, Winstone, yes. Yeah.
And there was an interesting story about Winstone. What's the name, right?
Well, yes. I mean, the author, right? Wow, you know a lot. That's impressive. But yeah, the author. I mean, he in this project description page, he had this story of how he got almost bugged in Okinawa or like somewhere. I don't know, maybe it was in Tokyo, and then so that became the name of the project. Strange,
but I remember that. Why you use the Winstone engine and not Grizzly or whatever?
Yeah, that created a bit of an internal storm, precisely because of that. They thought I should be using some product, but I discovered that had the best embeddable interface.
Okay.
So actually, I wanted to use. I think my original prototype was using Jetty.
Okay.
And then Jetty was a huge no-no because that was seen as a competitor to another project that the Sun was doing in the Grizzly.
Okay.
So Winstone, I thought, was a little low-hanging, lower on the radar thing. It had a good interface, good API. Back then, for me, it was a very important criteria. The criteria in which I evaluated the library was it was the same interface. That, if it's exposing the API. If it's designed the way I would have designed, then it was a good one. It's kind of like a
okay. So not very selfish. So humble design, right? and you knew the guy from Winstone, or was it just accident that you found the?
No, I didn't know the guy. I don't think I've actually ever met him. I'd have loved to meet. I hope. I don't even remember his name now, actually. But maybe I get to meet him someday.
What's interesting, what was very novel in your approach. You could download the Hudson war, and then say Java -jar Hudson, and it started. So it was like a fed war, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this was the what Spring Boot does now. You did When was it?
Mhm.
15 years ago? 20 years ago? 15.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, I think it was, what was really useful is like in the open source project, you get to like expose directly to you get exposed to users. And then many of them are not Java people.
Yeah.
So for them, the whole idea of like setting up, downloading Tomcat and doing this and that and drop the whole file,
Yeah.
it's like all too complicated.
Yeah. What was also nice in Hudson from the beginning was the administration interface in the installation experience. So you started the Hudson and you were basically done. So, I mean,
right. Yeah. Thank you. Exactly. So,
but this was a very novel approach back then. So I remember I launched Hudson and I say, that's different. Why someone spends so much time, in user experience? So this was, for me, it's like incredible. So this is incredible that someone spends, so much time. I had the experience once with Hudson and the other time with the roller, web roller, from Sun, the block engine. It was also similar. So you could drop a war, into the Glassfish or whatever you had, and it started, and then ask you about the database. You didn't have, to specify the GDBC. It happened actually from the user perspective, and I said, this is incredible. This, you can actually create how to call it, usable Java software or non-expert Java software. This was interesting.
Yeah. I don't think, I mean, I think that was around the time where those were more common. Like I remember Jira back then had the similar, like getting started interface and like configuration.
Yeah, for me, it was new. Whatever I knew, it was, you had to edit property files and XMLs. So, but in your case, it was completely different. So I think this was one of the factors why it was so successful, the Hudson.
Right. Yeah.
And me, why the name Hudson?
So I like this idea of I thought of this software as like another person in the team, right? Especially because back then we had this like a job function called release engineer, whose primary job was in fact like to produce a build, like official build for the team, and keep them archived and maintain the infrastructure to do this build. So for me, like I was writing a program version of it, and then so the British butler sounded like the kind of people who help other people. So I wanted to name it that sounds like a British butler. And in my mind, Hudson was like a British name.
Okay.
So that's how I took it. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. And what happens after Hudson? So you had some other project at Sun, or this was basically it?
Well, I had tons of projects. Most of these.
I remember H2K, Glassfish, right? So you were also
involved in HK2. That was a part of Glassfish. That was a company project. I had I wrote like the automation library for around Java.NET. I wrote the command line argument processor. I think that one I still use. I wrote.
What is the name of the project? The command line processor?
Args4j.
Args4j, okay.
Yeah, and then I also wrote like a binding with Windows component object model, which that's how in Microsoft land they expose. It's like a foreign function interface for Windows.
Which is hot again in JDK 16. You're talking about JDK 17.
Yeah. So I remember like making an argument back then to see people like it looked like running right once run anywhere is not interesting. Like, the days of applet is over. Like, Java is used in the server side, so let's expose all the native capabilities. And they were like laughing, but now who's laughing, right?
Yeah. So you were too early, man.
Yeah, or I was not great at making arguments.
So you were a small rebel always, right?
Yeah, I never felt like I was an integral part of the team.
Okay.
Okay. It's like you're doing something. I mean, the JAXB I think that was very much a part of it. But before and after, like I was always working on different things. And so that's really, I truly appreciate the opportunity, but it's also.
But I mean, in the Glassfish team, what I saw from outside, it was also unique. The team spirit in Glassfish, for me from outside, what I observed was good. So there was Jerome, I think, was the H2K, right? There was the architect and the Ludo, and they were crazy people working together. And to my knowledge, they liked each other back then.
Yeah, I think the Jerome and Ludo, because obviously they are the French gang. So I think they had a great time. But I never felt like I was an insider. I was only spending part of my time in Glassfish. And,
okay.
It's and I wasn't senior enough to be in those like an inner circle of decisions, and I was not interested in being those coordinational team focused role. I was just more interested in writing great code by myself. And Sun had a few people like that. So that was like a well accepted, positions, roles. That's how you rolled, and it was okay. I don't
What
think
was your hero at
today's-
Sun, code-wise?
Oh, that's interesting. Code-wise, yeah, I don't think I had. I mean, maybe this sounds very arrogant, but I didn't feel there was anybody. I think I felt like I was as great as anybody else in that company.
Oh, so humble opinion, okay. Okay. What I remember,
So-
I met you at Java 1, I don't know when it was, but it was Sun.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we talked about, but it was a party and it was late. But what I remember, what you told me is that you are building a globe from Lego and you try to make it accurate. You remember that? An Earth.
Yeah. I still have it. Kind of shame I can't make you see it, but it's right down there.
And we
it's
talk
like a
about that.
huge-
It's like for me, and so okay, then explain. It's like okay, the problem is that you have like a map, and you try to create a 3D model of it from Lego. So okay, and we talk about that just for fun. So okay, you are an interesting guy, but now I have complete different opinion. I saw you are like a prodigy, and now for me you are a mix of prodigy and rebel. So
well, I guess I should say so. I mean, I guess my worldview was very small. Like I didn't like I was just working. I was so used to working solo in this context of open source. Like I didn't really understand what it takes to do that team software development. So that happened later. In like at least in the organized context. I mean, open source projects do collaborate, and in Hudson, like I figured out one way to collaborate by not collaborating, but that was not how
you created Hudson alone, or were you someone helped you?
So for like the first few years, I was solo, and then essentially like my only ace up in the sleeve is like if you this plugin mechanism, and then what that allows is everyone to have their own sandbox and like build a castle, and then collectively all these sandbox can come together and build cohesive software. So once I put that infrastructure up, then sort of the rest is taken care of by all the other people.
So you left Sun, or you were part of Oracle? What happened?
So I felt so I kind of decided to leave Sun, and then Oracle decided to buy Sun. So I thought, okay, maybe I should stick around a little longer, like at least experience Oracle. And if it's good, then I could stay there. If it's not, I was going to leave anyhow. So like what I got to lose. So I decided to stay around. And then it was kind of a bummer because the European Union decided to to investigate the potential antitrust thingy, and that slowed the whole process for like 6 months. I was in limbo for another 6 months, and then I became a part of Oracle. And then originally I was really excited that I was finally moved into this organization that was doing tools. And back then I was in Java EE, but by then Hudson was my full-time thing effectively. So I felt like I was in a completely different org. The org the goal of the org and my personal goal are unaligned. So Oracle, I was moved to tools org, so I felt like, okay, this is great. Maybe I'm gonna get somewhere. And then I remember, so I patiently waited another 3 months after the company was acquired, and I was kept alone, and so I could continue to do whatever I was doing. But I thought, no, I wasn't. But I thought, well, is anything gonna happen? Or would I be essentially left alone, basically being forgotten? So I summoned up my courage and wrote an email asking, hey, if you don't need me, I don't need to stick around. I just letting you that I'm here. Are you gonna have any plans in the future for the Hudson? And then my new boss wrote back, yeah, we haven't forgotten you. Let's schedule something in 3 months to talk about the future of Hudson. I was like, okay, clearly these guys are not interested in doing anything. If a planning of the future is going to happen in 3 months, right? So that's when I kind of left the company.
Okay. And then Hudson was renamed to Jenkins by you because there was interesting story what happened behind the scenes. There were like, I had I had a chat with back then with Oracle. They told me there was some misunderstanding. Someone didn't reply to emails or whatever happened. They closed the repository or something, right?
Yeah, so I think so. After I left Sun, I think for a good after I left Oracle for 6 months or so, like, they kind of, I was left alone more or less, right? I mean, after all, like, I don't think they really wanted to do anything about Hudson. So, I kept working with the community. And then after that time, I think they decided that they wanted to do something after all. And then they looked around and realized that, yeah, well, they do own the copyright because I was working for them. Like, they didn't have anybody else that's knowing anything about Hudson in the company because I was the only one. And as far as the community guys are concerned, Oracle is there just in name. So what was unfortunate? What was unfortunate is the guy who was driving it just didn't know anything about the open source. So he thought the way Oracle could exercise the control is, they could trademark the name and they could kind of go back to the community and saying, well, if you wanted to play, have fun, continue to have fun, then you kind of have to follow, like, abide by our rules and follow what we tell you. And then this coming from Oracle kind of royally pissed off people. And then, so that kind of set the course.
Okay.
And then, I think you're talking about the repository closing and all of that. These incidents and whatnot happened but I think it's kind of important to understand that context. Like, that was when the motion was set. Like, people didn't appreciate being told what they're gonna do in the open source.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
And then you renamed Hudson to Jenkins, or you cloned the project and it became Jenkins, right?
Yeah, so at some point, I guess this kind of crossed the tipping point, and the people in the project said, well, "Fine, like, you own the copyright. I mean, you own the trademark. Go for it. But you can name this project something else and keep going."
And for me, it was really exciting because this is what I also suspected. Because there's no way that someone will be able at Oracle to maintain Hudson. Maybe they could be able, but they would need a team of people. And until they know what they are doing, it will take 3 months. And it requires commitment to understand, commitment and passion, to understand the code. It's really hard for corporate to commit the resources and justify the resources just to keep with fun. Because, the open source community, they don't care. They have fun and they contribute code. And this is a completely different context, right? And I was really curious what happens and how it's going, to be sold to the outside world. Because back then, Oracle was in a critical light. There was the Oracle and Sun deal, and people didn't like Oracle a lot back then. So, I would say, right? So this was, and they tried to be, Oracle, my impression was they had no idea how to deal with the situation, right? They were completely overwhelmed.
Yeah. So I think at some point it kind of became personal for the Oracle guy. So he just couldn't, capitulate. So he had to keep going. So I think he put up that show for maybe all in all a year or so. But eventually that discontinued. And so, but it was also, I just kind of wish we have ways to avoid that. I just can't help but wonder if you had something like a grown up in the room. Like, when it's like a relation stops being rational and like some emotions kind of get in the way, it's difficult sometimes it's difficult for people in that storm to work things out. I kind of wonder if there was some grown ups with acting as a mediator could be able to see some sense.
I mean, the problem is that you spend some time, in large corporations. The large corporations, they are not always rational. Even inside, there are departments fighting with each other for resources, which does not make any sense from outside. So I would say it is going to be hard. I would say probably the same guy outside Oracle would, or in smaller company, or also Oracle, in smaller Oracle, the Oracle doesn't matter, in smaller company, would behave completely different. I would say this is around it. They have budgets, they have to justify their budget and write reports and I don't know, and talk with other managers. And this is the problem. You cannot just say, now we reverse everything we did and we do something. Maybe this is a problem. I have no idea. I was always freelancer. I never worked for a company. It's just my observations.
Yeah, I learned a lot from that experience. But so later, afterward, when I see this kind of drama in some open source projects, like I remember like a few in which I think the Vortex, in which like a lead developer kind of got the like a cease and desist from VMware. And so whenever I see these things, like I kind of dismay. I roll my eyes in dismay because I kind of see myself in this other side. Like these guys, this seems like an opportunity that could have been saved. And so I wish I wrote a few emails to those people, and I don't know if that made any difference, but like that's still I kind of feel personal.
Okay.
Try to save the project from distress.
But you try to create a business around Jenkins?
Yeah. So when I joined, yes, but
Cloud
I mean
right?
the reason I wanted to leave Sun was because I felt like Hudson was actually doing great and going somewhere, and this felt like opportunity to. Like see how far I can go. So eventually, like that's after I left Oracle, I did that, and CloudBees, and so that was amazing experience.
Was CloudBees your company? No, this was the company from JBoss Red Hat, right?
Yeah, so it was started with Sasha Laboret.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I joined very early days. And originally it was originally the company was trying to do PaaS, but at some point, like the Jenkins business was doing so much better, like it became Jenkins company. Now it's obviously like a bigger than Jenkins, but for a good long while, that was the thing the company did. So it was amazing experience for me.
Okay, yeah. and CloudBees sold the commercial support.
CloudBees sold. Yeah, we did everything. Like we did training, we did the professional services, we had enterprise products. I still remember in the early days, like I was personally teaching the training course. So I showed up in this like a conference, like a training facility in Redwood City, like near the bay. They had like a nice yacht club right next to it, and we teach people Jenkins for 2 days. And they also like tell me like how they are using this software, and then sort of watching people like stumble on their software from behind their back is amazing experience. So that was also taught me a lot of things. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is I mean, it's also what I do from time to time, a few times a year. Some workshops is always you learn a lot, because what I really appreciate are the questions. Because if you get crazy questions sometimes. Okay, this is an interesting question. My understanding is completely different, but it's a very good question. Why is this way, right? So I really appreciate the questions. And exactly. CloudBees started with the idea about PaaS, so they knew about that platform as a service. Or what they wanted to have, a white file as a cloud, or what? Like OpenShift?
Yeah, I mean, back then, Heroku was a big success. And so I think that some group of companies were trying to bring that to Java. And then we did that for a while. And eventually we pivoted into Jenkins, like I said.
Okay. And after CloudBees, what happens then?
So, CloudBees, so now, I think the past 2 years, I'm now doing the next thing called Launchable. And so they are,
Launchable,
so my thinking was, Launchable.
This is your company now, or?
This is my company now.
So you are the 100% owner, right?
Well, no, like no company you can own. Well, I guess figuratively, I assume yes. So I get to call the shot a lot bigger than that CloudBees for sure.
Okay.
I certainly don't own the 100% of the company. So let's say like
I own 100% of my singleton Adam Bean, right? So
you did great. Yeah, congrats. Like I don't get. But anyhow, the point is like this I can chart the course, and so I noticed. So what we're doing now is like. I guess I still like working on developer productivity. And one thing I noticed talking to lots of software development team is like the bulk of the time is actually spent on building confidence to the changes that they made. Right? Like we produce a new line of code. Like in Jenkins projects, I had this problem. Like I make one line change. It's a big project. So we got like 18,000 plus test cases. And every single change you'd have to wait for at least 1 hour for all the tests to finish before it can be allowed to merge in. So that's a huge delay. And I know some projects are a whole lot worse. Like, they could take days to run the test. And then, but no developer said, okay, if the change passes all the test, I'm very confident, right? Nobody says that. Like, we all feeling very vulnerable. So I feel like the value of test is too sort of like too distilled, too thin. So I thought, well, like in a big system, like if you change just a small part, usually there are only a small number of tests that are designed to test that part. Right? So like if you can find those and just run those, then I can get the similar result far more quickly. And then so that's what I'm doing at the moment. Like I try to condense the value of the test into like adaptive smaller subset based on your change.
Is this what you are doing? You are sorting the tests according to changes?
Yeah, like what the machine learning model thinks are the highly probable test that's going to be impacted by this change, and then we try to run those.
So is
the
machine
end
learning
result,
also involved? That's interesting.
yeah, naturally. I mean, because the other, like you look at the landscape, and everywhere where the data becomes like at the critical threshold, there's this characteristic of the program changes, right? And I guess ops people knows this all the time. Like we say, pet versus cattle kind of thing. Like when you're dealing with many of things, like it changes the nature. I felt like the QA is well at that point. So it's beyond the comprehension of the humans now.
And what you're doing exactly? So you're allowed to code, or you became a businessman?
Well, I do code, but I'm trying not to. So, one of the things that I had trouble at the Cloudbees was trying to, when you're a CTO, like you need to contribute in ways other than writing code.
Yeah.
So, I needed to step away from like a coding and letting other people take more of that. But because initially, like I didn't know these things like it. So that was lesson. So this time around, I'm trying to do better in that regard. So
what's your role? You're a CTO?
I am the CEO.
A CEO?
I am the co-CEO, okay. Yeah.
So CEO is even worse. So you are not even allowed to look at the technology. You own stock markets and read the Financial Times and.
There's a little bit of like overstatement there, but it's certainly like I cannot be coding all the time. But nonetheless, like right now in this phase of the company, I still do plenty of that. But more like a bit of a mix of engineering management and individual contributor and also other CEO stuff. I have another co-CEO, like my co-founder, Harpreet. Between two of us, we can cover quite a bit.
And is it at least Java, your Launchable backend?
So the half of it is Java. This client side is in Python. So Java and Python.
Python, interesting. And maybe both can run on GraalVM. So you could run Python on Java.
Maybe, that could be. I didn't know that the Graal can run Python.
Yeah, Graal. The interesting part is the Graal can cross-compile Java to native code, but you can run Python, JavaScript, R, and Wasm,
cool.
And they communicate with each other. So this is really great. Right. So I use GraalVM to run JavaScript on it. Python less, but I suggested already in few projects where they are working with scientists, they would like to have a Python, so it runs perfectly on Java, Graal.
Yeah. I feel like, I guess I must be the kind of guy who feels like having emotional attachment is important. For the same reason XML was special to me, Java is special to me because I spent like so much of my career was intertwined in that. So it's not really like a rational technology choice. Like, is this the best language for the job? But because Java is like my kid. I can't leave it.
Yeah, but I mean, same here. But it should also make sense, right? So it's just emotional is nice, but right now XML, I am not emotional at all. You probably also neither. It's just does the job. But Java, what's really great at Oracle right now, they innovate like crazy with Java, which is really good. So and I really believe that Java is almost number one. So from the popularity perspective, and really kick-ass regarding what they are doing is with GraalVM and with the native compilation and new project like Helidon, Quarkus, and all that stuff. Micronauts is really interesting development, and you can be very highly competitive to the other languages. And in my project, I'm working together with, or watching at least, Node.js projects and Python projects, and I have not the feeling that we are slower if you behave reasonably right.
Yeah. Now, what I found interesting is, so like this time, my engineering team is all in Tokyo at the moment, and so when I try to recruit engineers, and there was a long story on like why I did that, but in this context, when I looked at, so for the purpose of hiring, I looked at lots of like resumes in the Japanese engineers, and quite a bit of them who applied to us, like they do not have any Java background. So I was shocked. Like I thought Java was the most popular language. But apparently not in certain sub-communities.
Maybe there is no JVM for NEC, computers in Japan.
Wow. So,
what they know, the engineers?
So Ruby is a big
Ruby?
Very common Ruby, yeah, naturally.
That's
So
strange
they
because
can-
Ruby goes in Germany, it goes back like crazy. So this Ruby on Rails is actually today before the show, someone from India asked me, this is Ruby developer, and he would like to learn Java E, which what
Cool.
books to? Yeah, this was today, 1.5 hours before our conversation. It was one of the questions. So Ruby is going back a lot. Python is gaining momentum. JavaScript is neutral on the backend, I would say. Also goes back, and the front end, of course, is number one. And what's gaining momentum is Rust, I would say. Rust and Go is also, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I need to. This conversation has been so fun. Like I forgot I lost track of time, but I need to jump to another call.
Yeah, perfect.
Actually.
So where people can find you on Twitter? Also, do you have Twitter and GitHub and?
Yeah, so I think there are not many Koskes in the tech scene. So like my Twitter account is Kosuke Kawa, for Kawaguchi is Kawa. And then on the GitHub, I'm just Kosuke.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you a lot for your time. It was fun for me, to uncover a little bit of the Java history. And I would like to invite you back and see, how Lunchable is doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I loved it. This was fun. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.